Hey everyone, so today we're going to be taking a look at the last manufacturer that's taking part in Invictus launch week, but because it's Drake, they're actually not at the Expo Center. They had to have their own event since they have a bit of a reputation as being ships that are good for piracy, and I guess that doesn't fit in that well with Invictus, and they weren't invited. So they're located here at the spaceport, and they're actually going to be showing off all of their ships in the interior of one of the hangars. So yeah, if you're looking on where to find them, that's where it's going to be. It's not going to be at the Tobin Expo Center like everything else has been. Alright, so as you can see, they've done a pretty good job of it, but they've converted the interior of a hangar to be the location of the expo. And you can see the red all over the place, since that's Drake's main color, I guess. Before we get to that though, I just want to show you guys these things because you probably will be interested in checking out these terminals, because not only do they have all of the ships that have been available throughout the expo, they even have some that haven't been available. I'm not sure why they included these, like the Reclaimer, because as far as I know, it's not even going to be on sale, but it is definitely a very cool ship. It's one of the bigger ships in the game, and it's cool to check out. Yeah, so like I said, not everything's here, but there definitely are some things here that weren't even available to purchase at the expo. And if you do want to check out something that you missed, or you just want a chance to rent it again, you can check it out here, and they're all conveniently located right at the spaceport. So it's actually even easier to try out the ships than it was during the main portion of the expo. Alright, now back to Drake. It seems like they've got their entire lineup here at the expo today, at least what's in the game. So we'll start over here with the Cutlasses. Alright, so here we have the Cutlass Black. This is a very flexible ship, and it's one of the best ships to have in the verse right now, since it can do a whole variety of things from light cargo hauling to combat missions to deliveries. It can carry a vehicle and even carry the very useful rock. And it's not super cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than many of the other options, so it's a pretty good value if you want to have a ship that's capable of most things that the verse has to offer right now. And it's a bit of a fan favorite for that reason. Then over here we have the Cutlass Red. This is another pretty useful one right now. So it gives up a lot of that cargo space in the back for some medical facilities. So this thing is supposed to eventually be sort of an ambulance. So the beds aren't going to be as good at healing as some of the other ones. I always forget which order the tiers go in, whether 3 is the highest or 1 is the highest, but these are going to be the lowest tier beds. But since medical gameplay isn't that far along yet, these both allow you to set your spawn point, which makes this a very useful ship if you're doing something like FPS combat missions where you might die due to some sort of server issue or just the NPCs getting the better of you. And depending on how this works with medical gameplay that's coming up within the next few patches, this could be a very useful ship, even more than it already is. And you can still fit a small vehicle in the back here if you squeeze it in just right. And then the last variant of the Cutlass that we have is the Cutlass Blue here. So you can see from the front already that it has a slightly improved canopy. It's got a bit more visibility than the other models, which have sort of struts in their view. But this one gives you a nice unobstructed view. It's also upgraded. I believe it's a little bit faster than the other variants, but I know for sure it has an extra shield generator, which definitely improves its toughness. And the blue is sort of the law enforcement variant. You can see those sort of flashers there. And to fulfill that role, it's got some prisoner pods in the rear, as well as a quantum enforcement device. I'm not sure where that physically is in the ship. It's not like the Mantis that can pull ships out of quantum, but if you've got someone close to you, then it can stop them from running away. Unfortunately right now, even if you use it against NPCs with a crime stat or other players with a crime stat, you'll get a crime stat yourself just for activating it, so it's not all that useful. And again, the prisoner pods aren't that useful yet either, since there's really no reason to put anyone in them. But in the future, this will be a very useful ship for bounty hunting with that enforcement feature and then the ability to hold those captives, as well as the general upgrades. Alright, and then over here we have the small and interesting looking Herald. So the Herald is a sort of all-around e-warfare, data runner, and possibly data interception ship. And also one of its other unique features is you can see these massive engines at the rear, and these make it the fastest ship in the game, at least in a straight line. It's definitely not the best at maneuvering, but it can go very fast in one direction. And then you can see here, this is the sort of console that you'll be using for your e-warfare gameplay when that stuff comes online. And then you can see along the sides here a whole lot of server racks that I assume will be useful for storing that data. And it's got a little bed and a pilot's seat. So unfortunately the ship's a bit limited in its use at the moment, but in the future it could be a very useful little ship to go and snoop around for some data and then get out of there quickly if you need to. Alright, and then over to the right here we have the Buccaneer. So the Buccaneer is kind of a light fighter, but it carries a lot more weaponry than other light fighters. And it's not the most maneuverable, but it's very fast in a straight line. Again, you can see it's got those large engines, especially for its size. And yeah, it carries a ton of firepower. It's really just considered a light fighter because of its low durability. But yeah, recently I've heard that there were some issues in previous patches with its maneuverability that have been fixed in this patch, so it's even better than it used to be, and I already liked it with that large amount of firepower, so this one's probably worth taking a look at least to rent and try out on some bounty missions. Alright, and then taking up a lot of space along the middle of the expo hall here, we have the Drake Caterpillar. So this used to be the largest cargo ship in the game before the Hercules. It still is the second largest though, with 576 SU. And again, this ship is missing some of its intended features that'll help it compete in other ways beyond just cargo capacity. So each of these bays that you can see here, eventually these doors will act as elevators, so that'll be one small benefit. You'll be able to use them for smaller vehicles, but also they're supposed to be modular. So we haven't heard yet what those modules might be, but you could have additional stuff, possibly like an armory or maybe even e-warfare rooms with additional server rack space. But yeah, this thing will be getting some sort of additional functionality in the future in the form of modular rooms. And then we already know that this command module here will be detachable, hence its onboard living quarters, that door there that's currently not working, and its own set of thrusters. And also another feature that the Caterpillar has is on this starboard side here. If we go up, you can see that it has this tractor beam operator room, which will eventually come online and will make this ship great for piracy because you can load cargo in from the sides through these side doors using that tractor beam, and it'll be a lot more convenient than something like that Hercules, which is definitely meant for use in areas with gravity. Alright, so that's it for the ships. Now let's go check out what's in the display hall. So on our way to the display hall, we have a few more of those rental kiosks where you can rent all those ships again, as well as some Drake merch. Alright, so in the display hall, we have a few holos off to the sides, but we also have a currently flyable vehicle. This is the Dragonfly. Unfortunately, it's not all too useful at the moment, since in space it's somewhat slow and tends to overheat quite quickly, and on planets it's often difficult to control. It's still fun to zip around with, but don't expect it to be super fast, even though it is a small space bike. Alright, starting with this big ship over here to the left. This is the heavily anticipated Drake Kraken. So the Kraken is a carrier ship, and you can see on the top of the ship, it has a pretty sizable flight deck that you'll be able to use to carry a variety of ships. It also has an internal hangar and a ton of cargo capacity on board in this standard Kraken variant. It's around 270 meters long, so it's one of the bigger player-ownable capital ships. And with those carrier capabilities, along with the large amount of cargo, this will be a great ship to use as a mobile base. I believe it can land planetside, which is pretty cool for a ship of this size. And yeah, it's gonna be a really valuable and versatile ship once it's in the verse, as long as you have the crew to run it. Now over on the right here, we have a ship that's probably a bit closer on the horizon, and it's much smaller. This is the Vulture. So the Vulture is the small salvage ship. You can get a sense of its scale since that's the pilot cab up there. This will probably be one of the first ships to receive actual salvage gameplay whenever we finally get that. And it's basically the prospector for salvage. And I'm definitely looking forward to this ship because it'll probably be coming along with a new gameplay loop, and hopefully a very profitable gameplay loop. Alright, and then the last holo we have today is another highly anticipated ship. This is the Corsair. So the Corsair is another sort of ship in the same size category as the Constellation and the Star Runner, and this is the most heavily armed out of all of them. So you can see it's got a lot of pilot firepower with lots of missile and weapons hardpoints and some side turrets, which are going to be interesting to see how those side turrets work, but at least in terms of hardpoints, it's very well equipped. It's also got cargo space that can be used for a vehicle in the back here, and I just personally like its design aesthetic. I think it's one of the most Star Wars looking ships in this game, with the asymmetry and these wings that somewhat remind me of a Lambda class shuttle. And yeah, I just really like the size category of ships, like that Constellation size, because they're usable as a single player, but they also have enough space to allow for some multi-crew gameplay, and at this size they give you a lot of flexibility in the types of missions and gameplay loops that you can take part in. Alright, so that's all I have for this video. So the ships that I'd recommend from Drake, I'd say would be the Cutlass Red if you're looking to do some FPS combat missions, possibly like the 890 jump mission that's available to do right above Microtech. And the Buccaneer is a fun ship if you want to try out some ship-to-ship combat. And then if you haven't flown a Caterpillar, I'd recommend trying it, but do be warned, it's an interesting flight experience and it's not the most nimble of ships. But also, remember there's those vehicle terminals, so you pretty much have access to all of the ships that have been available at the expo and even some more. So definitely take the opportunity to check those out if you want to do that too. especially since they're conveniently located at the spaceport, so you don't even have to ride any trains to get there. Alright, now I want to thank my members, The Pair Effect, Starlit Domina, and Great Watch 93. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, and if any of you guys want to support the channel, you could do that by hitting the like and subscribe button, which I really appreciate. And if you really want to help support me, then you can become a member, and I'd really appreciate that as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this Invictus. I definitely have, and thanks for watching.